we are thinking about or making decisions about the various services that we're going to offer our students, we really stop and listen to them first. So we use their feedback, we use data and evidence in order to help us decide how to best serve our learners so that we're really authentically meeting their needs and meeting them where they are. So let's jump in. Okay. So we put the needs of learners first. Just to give you a little bit of a background of where we're coming from when we design our supports, these are some of the characteristics that our supports have. These are some of the assumptions that we make. So we believe that we should be meeting learners where they are without judgment. And we intend to offer services that align with the academic needs and lifestyles of our learners. So these are some of our guiding principles and values and the lens through which we look when we're deciding how to best serve our students. So our learners deserve supports that lead to academic and personal success, that are easily accessible, available when and where they need them, and that are aligned with learning outcomes. And we want our services to help build confidence in students and help encourage them to continue and also to maximize their time and resources. And Rebecca will talk a little bit more about the specific services that we offer.
So when we're talking about services, what we're talking about is the supports that we offer for students, and we offer a variety of supports. These include one-on-one supports like 24/7 chat, email, and phone access to a librarian. These allow students to get help from a librarian and actually helps them fulfill their particular information need. They also have the added benefit, these one-on-one supports, of providing a rich source of information and data about the specific tasks, classes, assignments, and even information literacy objectives where students struggle. So we use these interactions not only as an opportunity to support the individual student, but to inform how we create DIY and scale solutions. And there are students who will not reach out to the library for a variety of reasons. We use the information that we glean from the one-on-one interactions to develop a variety of tools that we offer at the point of need for all students, even when they're unable, unwilling, afraid, or even unaware that they need to ask for help. And this way we can expand our reach and support more students in a variety of ways. So these DIY supports, some of the initiatives that we have taken to support these particular students who may want to do this kind of work on their own and not actually speak to a librarian one-on-one, is Quick Answers, which is an automated answer tool. It answers some of the most frequently asked questions for students. So we answer the same questions all the time, day in and day out. This way students have access to those questions without actually having to call and talk to a librarian. We also offer tutorials and guides on our website. So we know where students struggle. We have tutorials, tip sheets, infographics, other things that can explain concepts or teach them skills that they will need for fulfilling their assignments when it comes to research. We also, because we know that we want to hit students where they need it most and at the point of need, we also embed learning objects within the courses. So we identify particular courses where students struggle and we create objects specifically for those courses, or we embed objects that we already have created that to support that particular information need or research area of struggle that students are having. And one of our, probably our best ones we have, our DIY scale support is liaisons embedded in the course development. So our liaisons actually, because they speak to students on a one-on-one basis, have a really great insight into the places that students have issues and struggle. So they can actually catch those things before the course is actually put out there. So they're involved in the course development process to get that student and that librarian and research perspective, and to suggest things like course embedded learning objects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if there's anything you should take away from this presentation, it should be that the services and approaches that we take to serving students are really strategic and intentional. So we don't like to make guesses. We want to authentically meet their needs, so we listen to them. We use our everyday interactions with students to better understand where they're coming from, but also we look at quantitative and qualitative evidence to explore the best ways to meet their needs. So some of the questions that we ask ourselves whenever we're thinking about the one-on-one supports that we offer students, so phone, chat, and email with a librarian, you know, whenever we're trying to figure out how to best mold those to meet students' needs best, we might ask ourselves things like, how much are one-on-one services being used? Is there a certain mode of communication that students prefer? Like, do they like chat over email, for instance? What days and times do they need us most? And do they even like the service? You know, are they having pleasant experiences with us? So, so we ask all of these questions, and you know, we have a pretty small staff here in the library, and we serve a large body of students. So we also are asking these questions so we can maximize our efficiencies. So let's get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of the data that we actually look at.
So as we mentioned, we're really thoughtful and use data to determine how and when we offer one-on-one supports. One of the things we look at is the big picture. This shows the total, this particular chart shows the total usage of our one-on-one supports all the way back to 2012. And this gives us a really nice picture of overall usage and shows the impact of the decisions we've made in terms of services and resources offered. So you can see more skilled supports lead to less one-on-one usage. So as you can see, shifts in overall usage are based on some of the decisions we've made. The first, you can see there's a drop in usage based, and some of that is based on available phone hours. So we used to offer 40 hours a week students can contact us, but we made a decision, a strategic choice that allowed us to drop those hours so we could focus on more scalable and DIY supports. You'll also see a drop as well at the point that these supports were actually integrated into the library website, into the course development. So some of these are based on hours offered, but some of these are actually based on less needs, because once these supports were provided, students would need to contact a librarian and get help a little bit less on those particular areas that they were struggling. And then you're also going to see other things that we did, supports that we integrated into the library website. A large jump you're going to see right over towards December 2015, February 2016, is when we implemented the 24/7 chat feature. So this was our first opportunity for students to get one-on-one help outside of limited hours that we were offering. So we offered a smaller amount. Now we have 24/7, and you can see with 24/7 availability, students are actually utilizing that particular option. And this demonstrates not only the impact of our scalable supports, this chart, but also the need to continue to provide a variety of avenues for students to get one-on-one help that they need. While it's a good idea to keep an eye on overall usage of phone, chat, and email, we also kind of want to know which service is used the most. So the next slide, we're going to talk about a breakdown. Next slide is going to provide a breakdown. So we've got, this actually shows a great breakdown of usage by service. So you'll see phone, chat, and email use, which is more specific and definitely more useful for us. And it tells us that students prefer chat, which is not surprising. As there's no limitation on the hours that students can access this resource, and it's an immediate and has a real-time nature. So these interactions, students can contact a librarian and speak with them at the time they need them, and it's a conversation. It's not just a one-sided, I need help on, and here's an answer, so they can get more clarification. And so we can see definitely chat is one of our more popular. Email's a little less popular. That's, students can email us 24/7. It's a one-on-one, it's a one-time interaction for the most part, so I can see why students wouldn't use that. And phones, this could possibly be due to limited phone hours, but that's another option that's available. And then one of the things, this is something we've actually looked at in the past, which is trying to help us determine when we should offer the supports that we do. This is an example from 2015. So we used a website usage heat map, and this will clue us into when students are working on their research and when they might need help. So it gives us an idea of when they're in the library and when they're working. Now, that doesn't necessarily indicate when they might actually need help with their assignments, but it gives us a better picture of when that would when they'd be able to, when they need that assistance. And then this is another heat map that gives us really good information as well. Due to the limitations of our size and staffing, we actually had to make tough decisions about how we offer phone hours. So we've used an incoming called heat map, which shows us the highest times of demand and helps us decide on the phone hours and when we should offer them. And this heat map shows when students have called the library number, both inside and outside of our phone hours. Now, when evaluating this information, we have to keep in mind that this data is skewed by the hours that are listed on the website and when we're available, as students are kind of most likely going to try to contact us around those hours that phone is actually offered. So, but we do use this to get a good idea of when students are trying to reach us, even when we don't have phone hours. Our best source of information, though, one I really like, is the same idea as this chat traffic times. It's the same idea as the phone heat map. It actually shows us our most popular days and times that students contact us and gives us a clue when they need us the absolute most. Now, I like this one because it really gives us a better picture of actual usage because it's 24/7. So 24/7 service, they have this available at any time, so it's not going to be skewed by the hours that are offered or anything like that. With this information, now we can get a more complete picture of the times that students will need us. And since these individual data sets are just a snapshot of a portion of student behavior, it's really important for us to pull all the data sources together and think critically about what the data is telling us to get a better picture of student usage and behavior. And this allows us to offer one-on-one supports strategically and in a way that can inform the other choices that we make.
Go. All right. So another thing we ask ourselves whenever we're considering how we're doing with one-on-one supports is, are learners satisfied with the service they're receiving? How's their user experience? So we do ask students every single year through our annual student surveys, and we ask students to rate their experience with librarians based on professionalism, availability, knowledge, and courteousness or friendliness. So we have percentages for each of those individual measures, but shown here are kind of the overall satisfaction scores that students report when it comes to their experience with librarians. And as you can see, there's about 55% that do not interact with librarians, and we expect that. That's why we have a lot of DIY and scaled supports so that students who want to do things on their own don't have to reach out to a librarian. But of the students who do reach out to us, overall, they have excellent experiences, which is awesome. So we have 0% that said they had a poor experience. So yay, we're on the right track. And then we also ask this for our 24/7 chat service. So most students completely agree that the librarian answered their questions correctly, they were courteous, and that that the student would recommend this tutoring service to a friend. So overall, students are really happy with our chat service as well. But if for some reason these numbers started to drop, if we saw that the students were less satisfied at a certain point in time, it might clue us in to maybe look more at the chat's transcripts. We do look at those transcripts to kind of just monitor them for quality control. But if we saw a sudden drop in satisfaction rates, it might make us look even closer at those transcripts to see where we can improve our service. So now that was one-on-one supports, but what about our DIY and our scaled supports? So things like quick answers, our course embedded tutorials, things like that. How are those doing? And some of the questions we'd ask to evaluate those things are learners even using them? Are they using our tutorials and guides? Are our scaled supports are they providing a good user experience? And what kind of impact do our supports have? So the first things first, do they even use our supports? Well, we see that they do, thankfully. So we have stats from our video tutorials, and as you can see, we have about over 35,000 plays for the first half of this year. So students are definitely watching our tutorials, and unsurprisingly, they're watching the ones that are embedded in courses more than the ones that are just found on our website. So that's not really a surprise to us. We see that point of need interventions really are get the best usage. And other than looking at overall plays, we also look at play-through ratio. So how long of this tutorial are students watching it? We can see who can watch it through to 25%, 50%, etc. So it helps us pinpoint where we might be losing students in our tutorials. So if they fall off early on in the tutorial, it might kind of prompt us to look at them and see how we can improve that tutorial.
Yeah, we can even front load the most important information and provide the background information even if later in the tutorial to make it easier for students who want to tune out.
Yeah, and you know, we do see a lot that the longer tutorials have a lower play-through ratio. So again, not surprising, but it's still good to see this in solid data, and it tells us keep it short. Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, just from personal experience, I feel the same way. I don't like long video tutorials either. So another thing that we offer are our research guides. And these are basically customized websites created by librarians that point students to particular resources, search strategies. You know, it's kind of like a nice little contained website of resources, basically. And we make these for particular courses, particular assignments, sometimes subject areas. But we want to know, are they being used? Definitely, they're being used. We got almost 70,000 views for our guides in the first half of this year alone. So that's awesome. Again, the more customized and specific guides get the most usage. So English 225, History 103, those are getting a lot of views. So that's great to see. Now, another thing we ask are these supports providing a good user experience? Do they like them? Is it easy to navigate? Things like that. So one of the ways we do this is we do embed really short, brief surveys in some of our tutorials, especially the interactive learning modules that we make in Storyline. They're really comprehensive and usually have kind of a choose your own adventure structure to them sometimes. So we wanted, for this particular example, we wanted to know, are students getting lost? Is it easy to navigate, or are they getting lost? So this is for our How Do I Begin tutorial. So we asked them how easy or difficult was the tutorial to navigate? And, you know, with a star rating of 1 through 5. And as you can see, the yellow indicates 5. So most students are finding it pretty easy and problem-free to get through the tutorial, which is great. And then we also have an open text question at the end so we can get more qualitative data out of the surveys. Because this is great overall, but it doesn't give us any clues on how to improve the tutorial specifically. So we also ask them to share any other thoughts or comments they have. And this is where we get really useful data. So a lot of people have good feedback, that's great, but also we see someone saying, maybe slow her speech. She seemed to talk very quickly. So that gives us a specific clue as to what to look at to maybe make some improvements to that tutorial. All right. Also, one other thing that I forgot to mention, we also have open-ended questions in our annual student surveys where we ask students, what's the hardest thing about using the library? We get really, really good stuff from that. It's like my favorite thing to look at those. So finally, we ask ourselves, what kind of impact do our supports actually have on students in terms of student academic achievement and things like that? One of the things we have, data points we have access to, thankfully, is how our library chat, 24/7 library chat affects students. And we see overwhelmingly, I know there's a lot on this slide, so don't worry about getting too caught up in the specifics, but a lot of the kind of overall big data points are at the top with the bars. So we can see overwhelmingly and consistently that students who use the 24/7 library chat do better. They have higher pass rates, significantly higher pass rates, and significantly lower fail and drop rates than students who don't use the service. They also have higher points earned in a course. This also goes for Writing Center chat and the subject matter tutoring as well. So it's not just library. So yeah, this is having a huge positive impact on students. And I know one kind of like argument maybe against that whole point is that maybe, you know, the quote unquote better students tend to use these services rather than the students who are maybe more at high risk who don't reach out. So, you know, this doesn't necessarily have a causal relationship, but we actually did, we controlled for that variable, and that's in that third column, the non-user with the asterisk on it. Those are kind of our like group. So, so we can still see that the users do way better than the non-users who are similar. So if you want more information on that too, I know we're kind of getting short on time, feel free to reach out to me or to Mindy Sloan, Dr. Mindy Sloan. She's more than happy to talk about this stuff. But some more data to share with you. We looked at how our course embedded tutorials, particularly the ones embedded in the gen eds, had an effect on students' research independence as well as their scores on information literacy skills. So basically, we saw, once we put a tutorial into a course, we saw a 67% reduction in questions that librarians receive from students in those courses. So it was huge. Basically, we're getting all these calls, students having all these research struggles. We put a point of need intervention in the course, and they stopped reaching out to us because they didn't need to, you know, they basically had their answers, their questions answered before they had to reach out to us. So that was huge. And then we also see that students score better on the rubrics that measure information literacy skills. And what I mean by that is usually the resource requirement. And I think we also looked at the critical thinking rubric in a couple of courses. So we looked at ANT 101 and SOC 120, and we saw significant positive outcomes in both of those courses after we put a tutorial in. So we feel like, or we're seeing some pretty good evidence that our tutorials are having an impact on students' academic performance, which is awesome. Yay.
It means it's worth the effort.
Exactly. So I'll turn it over to Rebecca to talk a little bit about our impact effort model as well.
Thank you, Jacqueline. We always have a lot of really great ideas of things that we want to do as librarians. We spend a lot of time doing professional development and always looking for new and innovative ways to serve our students. So how do we choose what we're going to spend our time and our effort on? We use something called an impact effort model. As mentioned earlier, we have a limited staff and are really dedicated to making sure we're helping as many students as efficiently and effectively as possible. So we pride ourselves on the ability to take risks and develop innovative initiatives and solutions. And we have a ton of wonderful ideas, but we have to figure out a way to decide what's worth our time and effort. And so what we do is we have strategic planning that we do every year. And each dot on this impact effort model has a specific representation to something on a strategic plan. So the top left quadrant represents what we would consider low-hanging fruit. So high impact, low effort. This is the initiatives that can easily prioritize, the things that we want to immediately start implementing. And then we take a look at the other quadrants. What are things that are worth more time? What can we remove from our efforts in order to, you know, what should we focus on? And sometimes, you know, some of the things that are low impact and high effort do have to stick around because they are important features of a library, but it's a good way for us to prioritize what we want to spend our time and energy on and how we can efficiently and effectively help our students with a limited staff.
So again, if you take anything away from this, just know that the library makes few assumptions. we seek evidence, and we have a strong assessment culture in the library. So thankfully, we function in a very data-rich environment, which is awesome. But evidence and assessment really, they just empower us. It empowers us to better understand what the community really needs from us and how we can, how we're affecting our users. It helps us communicate our impact to key stakeholders, helps us prioritize our projects. And it can help validate us or reaffirm that we're doing things right, or it can help clue us into what we need to improve. So, yeah, it's very important to us that we listen to our users and kind of respond to what they're telling us they need.
And just to make a quick note, based on what we discussed here, you can see that our decision to, based on the data, to cut down reference hours and really focus on point of need instruction was an effective method of reaching more students. This is just, it's good evidence that proves that some of the initiatives that we work on really do have a positive effect.
Yeah, and I cannot see this chat. I'm sorry, if people have been chatting, I've not been able, okay, I just pulled it up, so sorry guys, but if you do have any questions, feel free.
We've got 4 minutes, so
Yeah, 4 minutes.
we'd love to answer anything you have, any questions that you have. Catherine wrote a great statement in here. She says, we are always, she wrote, great use of data, qualitative and quantitative data, but what about using creativity and offering information or features we don't know we need, but might like if we saw? And that's one of the things we do. We do the surveys and ask students what we're missing. We also, like I said, we keep very much abreast of what's happening in the library field so that we can use innovative solutions, even outside of the library field, even in just the technology field, to figure out how we can reach students in a way that they may not even know they wanted to be reached. What do students typically ask about? Well, what is a scholarly source is one of our top questions. They really don't understand the specifics of what they're looking for and how they're supposed to use it. We get a lot of questions about how to get to their assignments, less so, assigned readings, less so, since we've embedded direct links within the classes. Some technology issues occasionally, which is unfortunate. We do work, but that's fantastic data for us when they ask that question, because we can mine that data for specific issues, specific problems, so we can figure out what the issue is and solve it for the rest of the students who don't get a hold of us.
Yeah, I do like Catherine's comment about being creative sometimes and going out on a limb and doing things even though maybe you don't have the data to support it, and that's very important too. And I think sometimes you can, whenever you do things like that, you can still kind of evaluate it and see how you're performing. Are students liking it? Are they getting something out of it? So you can still be creative and kind of jump into projects even though maybe you don't have a ton of data to support it yet. But then, still I'm very much a data person, so I think it's good to at least take a look and see how it's doing, keep a pulse on how it's performing. So.
And I'm a big person who likes to take all creative initiatives and try something new, but it's important to have that data when you try something new to determine whether or not it's working, or if it's not working, how you can fix it or try a different approach. Because there's no failure. It's always just an opportunity to learn more about your students and to maybe possibly try something a little bit different.